So real quick, is there a Sarah Paulson hive? And if so, how would one go about inquiring about joining said hive? Hello, everyone. Terrence here with Hollywood Already Did It. If you're new and you haven't already, go ahead, like, share, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell below anytime we have something. You will be among the first to know. I don't get into a lot of TV here. A lot of the times it's because it's too time consuming. I don't have the time. Where movies I can get in and get out, give them a review, and move on. TV sort of takes a long time. So I kind of pick and choose my shows. So say that one, if there are any shows that you want me to talk about or you want me to follow along with, please put it in the comments to let me know. Two, I sort of pick and choose what I watch. I got onto White Lotus late. I did finish it. It's good. I just didn't get to talk about it in real time. But there are some shows that I know that for sure I want to talk about. Right now, I'm doing Nine Perfect Strangers, which you'll find here as well. But I'm also deciding to do American Crime Story Impeachment for a couple of reasons. One, I love the first two American Crime Stories. I thought they were really well done, albeit sometimes a bit ham-fisted with the overacting, but really interesting looks into the looking in hindsight to some tragic and media-driven moments of the past. So I had to jump into impeachment. I say all of that to say that this first episode of impeachment lets me know that we're sort of in for a different energy and speed than the first two American Crime Story seasons. The first season was the People versus OJ, and so when you're dealing with that, you're dealing with OJ, his heightened celebrity, the crash, the highway chase sequence, all of that. With Versace, you're dealing with murderer, so there's always a sense of energy or intrigue or mystery or murder or something like that going on. With impeachment, you're already sort of behind the gun. You have a story that is not as aggressively charging as those two are, and so you're dealing with politics, and you're dealing with a lot of talking heads talking to each other, and there's no murder or anything like that. This is dealing with a politician and politics and lying, and whether or not I don't care about what side of the fence you fall on, or whether or not you care about. I don't care about who is giving oral sex to another person. That's none of my business. That's them. But the lying under oath as a political figure is where I think the problem comes in. So this sort of deals with that, but that can be very uninteresting if you don't care about it. And so we're tasked, or the producers are tasked with creating a story that is interesting, uh, albeit not having the same hook as the other two. And the way you do that is you get Sarah Paulson to go Sarah Paulson and just go full on in, and she's killing it. She has a fat suit on. She's giving it her all. She's Ryan Murphy's muse, and there's really no better person to use in that than her. She's playing Linda Tripp, which is a character and a person that rest in peace. She isn't all that likable, and nor should she be. But this is doing a very interesting way of sort of us hindsight, like as they've done with all the rest of the series, hindsight looking at her and sort of feeling one way or another about her without sort of just letting her off the hook for the things that she is doing with wiretapping and all that stuff. It sort of beats her down, and you get that part of it. You do feel the sympathy or empathy you do for her, but at what cost, I'm not quite sure. But this whole first episode, as much as I like the acting in it, it does not give me the impetus so far to really continue on. You get a little button at the end when you get Clive Owen pop it on as Mr. President Bill Clinton himself. But all in all, there is not a lot of oomph that makes this first episode drive as hard as the first episodes for Assassination of Versace or People versus OJ. And I do know that before anybody comes in the comments and starts talking about it, I do know that there was this plan for season 3 was originally supposed to be about Katrina, but couldn't quite find the story to jive with, so they put this one ahead. But because of the acting, because of Beanie playing a super innocent and young looking Monica Lewinsky, who at the end of it, you kind of just got to feel for her. I mean, that's sort of what they're setting up more than I think anything is making her like the doe-eyed girl who's just way in over her head, and people are her being the youngest there. People are actively seeking her out and sort of manipulating her on all sides of the spectrum, and she just sort of gets. She's. It appears she's going to be getting used up quite a bit as a person who just isn't of this world, but getting swallowed whole by it. So that'll be interesting to look into. And Beanie looks like she's doing a great job so far already. Um, Cast is stacked. I can't wait to see Edie as Hillary. You get Clive fully on as President Bill Clinton, Margot Martindale. I mean, this cast is going to end up being a who's who of actors. It just is it going to be interesting? Where you're always going to be in the White House or in some political forum with these whitewashed walls and boxes, sort of doing the talking head thing. And is there anything that's going to be driving you as interesting as like these party sequences that happen in Versace or these outlandish lash out moments that sort of OJ had during his. What I will say is because I lived through. I'm old enough to remember actively the OJ stuff. I remember my Houston Rockets game being interrupted because of the chase. I was not as familiar with Versace, just because I'm not of that world and not of I didn't follow that stuff, so I wasn't aware of it. But I am of the age where I'm just too young to quite understand all the things that were happening in this era for the Clinton trial. I remember Clinton. I remember it being a big to do about her. I remember Monica being the butt of a lot of jokes, but I don't actually remember everything else. The Linda Tripp stuff, but I remember the name. And I remember John Goodman playing her on SNL, but it didn't really ring anything to me. Paula Jones is a name that I was aware of, didn't know what she looked like. So it was interesting to see some of these points pop up. And I think if nothing else, what this show, this episode does really well is to sort of recreate those moments. And so as soon as I saw Paula Jones do her interview on the episode, I hit the Googles, and I'm like, all right, well, let me check it out and see what this looks like. I'm like, oh no, that's pretty much what she was wearing. The unintelligent affectations that she was being put with the actress was putting on sort of recreated what Paula was doing at the moment. Her unassuredness or timidness, basically being set up like there are people playing. There's a lot of puppets in this, and that's probably the biggest thing that you sort of get as you underlie the Linda Tripp stuff, because Sarah Paulson's doing so well as an actress. Is like, all right, that's the focal point that we're going through for this episode, but it's for me, it's not that interesting. I care more about the Beanie and the Monica stuff, but it also is interesting to see all these people sort of have an agenda against President Bill Clinton, and they're going to do everything humanly possible to get that agenda across. And so the second he slips up, they are going to attack, and they're using however means they can. So that's fascinating, and maybe that is the impetus that we sort of get for the show. But there is no driving energy for this episode. It feels sort of one note, and just maybe because I know that Linda Tripp now as an adult, I know that Linda Tripp is such a polarizing and unlikable character that it is hard for me to spend the majority of an episode learning about her and we really not get to the meat and potatoes of why we're here. I think because both for me right now, and I don't know which way it's going to go, the first half of this episode spends a lot of time with Linda. The second half spends a lot of time with Monica, and then we have a lot of stuff that deals with media and lawyers and everybody sort of jumping in. And so, whereas with People versus OJ and Versace, there were a clear, this is who we're focusing on, and this is the story we're telling, and this is who we're looking at. It is impossible right now to sort of see who is the lens for which we are entering this world. It seems like we're now sort of doing this. I'm going to use my video game folks here, but it seems like we're now doing the Mario camera on a cloud behind Mario type of thing, where we're watching it all happen, but there's no real person that we're supposed to be following or unearthing anything about said scenario. It's just kind of just now it's the viewpoint. And I do hope, for better or worse, they pick a position and sort of run with that, because at least then I get to kind of make my own opinions and latch on. This sort of blanket, I'm going to tell you everything, but not really give you any type of way. I don't know if that's something that I particularly want to see for an entire series or an entire season. All in all, I'm going to continue on because the acting is top notch, and these crime stories have not let me down so far, and it still is good, but in comparison to the other two and the way those other two launched, I much prefer that. So it has a bit of a catching up to do and a little bit of let's pick up the pace a bit to get me to be fully on board and fully invested like I were for those two. But what did you guys think for the first episode of Impeachment Exiles? Go ahead and leave your thoughts and comments in the comments below. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Twitter at HollywoodADI. You can hit us up on email at HollywoodAlreadyDidIt@gmail.com. We also have a podcast with the same name that's on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, any other place podcasts. We're there. We're currently doing a run of Marvel pair-ups with our guest host, Jamie Jurek. We're talking about Marvel What If, and then pairing those with non-canon MCU films like Blade or Incredible Hulk, the Ang Lee version. You can find that here on YouTube as well. We also have an original podcast. We talk about reboots, remakes, sequels, prequels, all that good stuff. That's also here. And this week we talked about Shang-Chi. Again, like I said at the top, I don't do much TV, but I'm starting to get a little bit more time and figure it out. So if there's any shows that you want me to take a look at, go ahead and leave those comments in the comments below. I am going to be watching the morning show because I watched the first season, so that one, don't worry about. I will be doing that one. But if there's anything else, please let me know. But like always, I got my ticket. You got yours.